Conker's Bad Fur Day at the time of this video was released 25 years ago. A crazy, silly, over-the-top, dare I say masterpiece 3D platformer created by the king of 90s 3D platformers, Rare. Conker had humble beginnings as a character in Diddy Kong Racing with the promise of starring in his own title soon, Conker's Quest, which became 12 Tales Conker 64 and ultimately Conker's Bad Fur Day. The game took a dramatic turn from its colorful and family-friendly 3D platforming approach after receiving feedback about it just being another little kiddie platformer like Mario or Banjo. The fatigue of 3D platformers unfortunately was hitting the core audience in the 90s. Rare had to do something, and that something, that direction, was rewrite the game and make the plot about Conker having a hangover. The entire game gives the vibes of the devs just sitting in a room coming up with crazy ideas and referencing movies. Here's an example of how some of this came to be. The creation of the Great Mighty Pooh? It came about from Chris Marlowe dropping a giant deuce in the toilet and calling people over to come look at it and how big it was. Someone jokingly said it should be a character in the game, and since Chris Marlowe sung opera, they added that. Thus, the Great Mighty Pooh was born. This line of creativity is what sparked Conker and gives it a totally unique and bizarre feel when compared to other platformers of its day. The game had a sequel conceptualized, but unfortunately, it never saw the light of day. The most we got was a remake of the title on Xbox with online multiplayer, and down the line a bit, a follow-up narrative with the game creation engine Project Spark that had Conker assets, Conker's Big Reunion. And we won't mention anything more about young Conker. It's unfortunate though this game never got a proper sequel, especially after hearing all the ideas for it. And to the dread of Conker and Rare fans across the world, there are a few good reasons Conker didn't get a true sequel. One, it ultimately didn't sell as well as they'd hoped. You can pin that a bit on it being released at the end of the 64's life cycle. And two, Microsoft tested the waters with a remake at the end of the Xbox's life cycle, and again, it didn't sell too well. Subsequent sequels were cancelled. Now we're sitting here 25 years later and there's a strong fan base of people wanting a sequel and the release of the 12 Tales build after Tim Stamper teased it a while back. But the folks behind Conker are very much inclined to believe a sequel wouldn't work. But why? Is it that they don't have faith in the state of the studio today? Do they think the raunchy and over-the-top cartoon humor isn't gonna fly? The gameplay wouldn't hold up? As someone who didn't get to play Conker until a little later in life, I think it holds up fairly well. It plays different than Banjo, but it has its own unique flavor going on. Going against the grain, I think a new game would work in today's modern age. How it would work would depend on how well it can balance the elements of Conker that made it into the cult following status of a game it is today, and bring it into the modern age. Let's start by identifying the elements that made Conker great, and just for the record, if you've never played Conker, spoilers. We will be talking about the story and everything, so you were warned. Anyways, the first element, humor and parody. Conker's humor is apparent right from the get-go with the whole premise, a squirrel who partied too hard and now has a hangover. But it goes beyond that, the silliness of every character's interaction with one another, and the barely logical dialogue that requires us to do something absurd. A great example would be Don Weasel giving us the task of eliminating the Ooga Boogas by dropping a bomb in the center of the volcano. It doesn't really have much of an effect on the plot other than introducing Don Weasel, a reference to The Godfather. Conker is essentially a collection of these references and humor that adds up to create the plot, only bridged together by having an overarching narrative of this being the tale of how Conker became king of all the land. Conker's raunchy, vulgar, and a bit self-oriented. He's constantly breaking the fourth wall and addressing us, the player, with his commentary, and often acknowledging how dumb other characters are being. This is one thing I've seen Chris Seaver mention as a reason why Conker wouldn't work today. To paraphrase him, he stated the humor would likely be nerfed. While I do agree that people are way more sensitive these days, I don't think it would. I would put this humor in the same realm of something like Deadpool. Combine Deadpool with Happy Tree Friends. Yes, a Happy Tree Friends reference. If you've never seen it, just do it. That's Conker. Now imagine this humor today and also being a parody of 3D platformers themselves. Conker could parody other genres of games. Imagine a Dark Souls-like level where Conker complains about the difficulty spike and fighting an over-the-top monster, asking us to go back to platforming gameplay because he's sick of this danger. Or a level where it requires motion controls for a few minutes before Conker says it's a gimmick and he swaps back to dual sticks. Stuff like that would be amazing. Moving on to the second element, creative gameplay mechanics. Now what do I mean by that? It's a 3D platformer and Conker has his basic movement, jumps, attacks, But to separate it from other platformers, we have the very unique idea of context-sensitive buttons. The context-sensitive buttons function as a platformer icon where we stand on and get a little light bulb above our head. Then we press B and we'll do something totally outrageous that will help us solve a problem in that exact moment. Things like turning into an anvil to drop on a switch or pulling out a flamethrower to ignite some bats. It's absurd, it's ludicrous, it's preposterous, and other adjectives. There are only a few instances where it does something normal like allows you to hit a button. Otherwise, it's insane. And it's something that really gives Conker a unique feel. It gives it a very Looney Tunes aspect, which helps separate it further, while also offering tons of variety in the game. It's never a simple rinse and repeat, you're always doing something new. This could be easily retained in a new game, and you could just be throwing ideas at the wall. The third element, worlds and character design. First, let's highlight the worlds. Every world is filled to the brim with charm. The game starts us off in Windy, the hub of the game, a bright, vibrant place filled with lots of color. You have a hive area, a big poo mountain, and the windmill at the center. I think one of the standouts of Conker's Bad Fur Day is that the skyboxes actually show the rest of the world in relation to the area you're in. For example, if you're in Barn Boys, you can see the beehive and such. There is tons to look at even in the skybox, and it gives it a feel of all being interconnected, which is incredible. The person who worked on these skyboxes deserves a raise for sure. The levels themselves are all creative and unique. Barn Boys is a sort of country ranch level. Bats Tower, we need to scale, save the cogs, and get the money from the catfish vault. Slaprano has the Great Mighty Pooh Boss. And rolling dung we get from cows, Katamari style. Ooga Booga makes us king of the cavemen, and we have lava hoverboarding and a stone people dance club. Spooky changes the vibe into a horror level with zombies and vampires. It's War puts us in the battle for the lives of the squirrels against the evil teddies. And the heist throws us into space fighting a xenomorph. All of this is wild, and somehow they fit it all together narratively. And this is large in part due to the characters of the world. Characters range from sentient objects with eyeballs to very detailed and well thought out designs. The same game has talking paint cans, an opera singing pile of poop, and an evil panther king. At some point I'll go over every species in the game, but for now, trust me, it's filled with incredible characters that are over the top silly. The combination of these characters populating the lovingly crafted worlds creates an overall atmosphere of goofiness and charm you can't help but love. It's the combination of all these elements that make the game what it is, the humor, the unique gameplay, and the worlds and characters. We could also highlight the music, which is incredible too, but to be honest, all Rare games on 64 have incredible music. Just saying. Some real talent over there back in the day. But anyways, concerns could be valid for a new game not living up to this cult status, but it's not like we don't have things in our modern day that are similar in style or vibe. As far as capturing all that today, why do they think it wouldn't work? Sure, people tend to be more sensitive and critical, but I don't think it would necessarily make the humor be nerfed. We have some pretty graphic and crazy things allowed in games these days. It would be way less controversial. There is also the potential to create even larger and crazier worlds. I don't think moving to an open world would make sense, but Conker has a nice thing going on doing different parts of the world in different orders. There really is only a few instances where it sets you up to take a specific path immediately. And building upon characters already well established and showing the return of some would give the series more lore and add to the fanbase. And while we're at it, potentially creating more crossover to Rare IPs would be a welcome addition to add. I'm all about that. Imagine they just randomly throw us into Spiral Mountain for a bit, or Conker goes sailing on the high seas. I realize there is this fear that Conker captured lightning in a bottle and it just wouldn't work today, but reading the proposed documents for the plot of Other Bad Day felt just as great as the original and would have expanded it. It's a shame we haven't gotten a proper sequel, which, to be honest, is typical Rare fashion. However, if they did consider it, it definitely would hold up today, just like the original. Well, that's all I have for you. Please drop a like to help support my content and subscribe to show love for Conker celebrating 25 years. Until next time, have a good one. Jiggylookback!